The Galactic Council's message arrived in the dead of night, an urgent broadcast from the diplomatic envoy of the core planets. Its tone was not one of negotiation or courtesy but the chilly, relentless demand of an empire that saw itself as untouchable. Ambassador Vith, a high-ranking Zoran, addressed the gathered officials of Earth with the contempt of a predator speaking to its prey. His enormous, scaled face twisted into something resembling a smirk, piercing golden eyes flickering with amusement as he read from the official edict. In conformity with the Galactic Accords, species under the protection and jurisdiction of the Council must contribute to the prosperity of the greater order. As your planetary defenses are insufficient for optimal engagement in military campaigns, the Terran species shall provide its tribute in the form of labor, resources, industrial yields, and technological assets. This shall be done without delay. The words hovered in the air like a guillotine. There was no offer, no discussion, merely a demand. The Council did not acknowledge humanity as an equal, only as a subject. The bureaucrats in the room shifted uncomfortably, muttering among themselves. But at the front of the table, General Callum Huxley said nothing. His fingertips pressed against the smooth surface of the conference table, slow, deliberate. He leaned forward, his amusement growing. "Do not misunderstand this for a request," he said. "Earth is in no position to disobey the Council. Compliance ensures security and prosperity. Resistance would be foolish." A sharp snap interrupted the silence as Huxley shut off the hollow projector. The ambassador's image flickered and vanished, leaving behind only the weight of his words. A faint hum filled the war room, tension so thick it pressed against the lungs of every individual seated. The Secretary of International Affairs cleared his throat. "We need to analyze our alternatives. The Council's reach is enormous. Their fleets could obstruct every main trade lane, our economy, before we even—" "No," Huxley interrupted. His voice was calm, but behind it was something solid as iron. He tapped an encrypted tablet, sliding it across the table. "Read it." The official hesitated before tapping the screen. His face paled. A heavy silence settled over the room. This was no sudden act of political theater. This was punishment. A warning. The Council had made their opinion clear weeks before this demand was issued. Terran scouting ships had intercepted distress transmissions from human colony outposts in disputed territories. Every attempt at diplomatic intervention had been ignored. Now, intelligence reports revealed the worst. Captured Terran soldiers, prisoners taken in earlier skirmishes, had been executed en masse. Their bodies desecrated, their remains paraded through alien cities as a warning to anyone who dared defy the Council's will. Huxley exhaled. "This is what they do," he said quietly. Standing, he fixed his gaze on the stunned officials. "They expect us to cower, to obey." He sighed, staring at the gathered authorities. "I say we answer." The Secretary shook his head. "With what? A formal protest? Economic sanctions?" "General, I sympathize, but we have no leverage here." Huxley locked eyes with him. "We don't need leverage." He straightened his uniform, his voice steady as stone. "We need a message." Silence. Then, a soft voice pierced through. "What kind of communication?" Across the table, Captain Flynn Garrick sat forward, eyes cold and calculating. He had seen firsthand what the Council's so-called justice looked like. He had watched friends dragged from bunkers, had heard the calls go silent when rescue teams arrived too late. Now he leaned in, voice like a knife's edge. "If they want a tribute," Garrick muttered, "let's send them one." Huxley didn't flinch. He turned to the operations officers. "I want our best strike teams prepped within the hour. Find where they're holding the last of our people." His gaze darkened. "And bring me the heads of those responsible." A murmur of shock raced through the room. The Secretary's face drained of color. "You're suggesting retaliation? We don't have the strength for an all-out war." "We're not launching a war," Huxley answered. "We're terminating a tradition, one where humanity is treated as a commodity." One of the intelligence officers hesitated before speaking. Sir, you're talking about an act that could rouse the Council into total military motion. Huxley met his eyes. The question wasn't rhetorical. It wasn't emotional. It was a challenge. The officer faltered. The room shifted. Terror and uncertainty flared on the faces of ambassadors and officials alike. But among the soldiers, those who had seen what the Council did to the helpless, to the broken, there was only one thing left: resolve. Garrick cracked his knuckles. We've got intel on a Zoran prison station operating outside of Council-sanctioned space. We go in quiet, extract our people if they're still alive, and collect the heads of their executioners. He hesitated. We send that as our tribute. The concept took form in the span of minutes. Stealth, infiltration, quick extraction, no unnecessary casualties. Only retribution. Someone cleared their throat. It was the youngest diplomat in the room, barely in her 30s, twisting awkwardly in her chair. What if the Council retaliates? Huxley turned to her, expression unreadable. They will. A beat of silence. Then she pushed. What? Huxley's lips coiled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then we show them why we weren't vanquished a long time ago. No more objections emerged. The judgment was made. As the room emptied, officers moved swiftly to coordinate the operation. Huxley headed for the exit. Garrick fell into stride beside him. You think V knows what's coming? Garrick asked. Huxley exhaled, the weight of inevitability settling over his shoulders. No. His expression stiffened. But he will. In the distant reaches of space, High Chancellor Vash of the Zoran sat motionless, his dark eyes fixated on the monstrous message left by humanity. The aroma of decayed flesh lingered in the air, an insult beyond words to the Council's dignity. The message was clear: the humans had not merely refused to pay tribute. They had answered with death. Across the chamber, representatives from various species shifted uncomfortably. The hush stretched heavy with the weight of expectation. Someone had to speak first. It was Supreme Arbiter Tilv of the Sith Dominion who finally leaned forward, his deep blue exoskeleton capturing the light. This, he began, his voice a mixture of disbelief and controlled fury, is an act of open defiance. Humanity does not understand the consequences of such insolence. Another voice, softer yet no less dangerous, cut through the strain. They do, murmured Councillor Athen of the Vine Collective, her translucent, vein-streaked skin shifting in color. And they are daring us to act. Vash's claws clenched against the armrest of his throne-like seat. His species prided itself on superiority, the ability to bend lesser civilizations to their will. That a species as young as humanity had not only resisted but struck back with such brutality was an outrage beyond measure. The Warden had been one of his own, a high-ranking enforcer of Zoran authority. His execution was not mere retaliation, it was a statement of war. This cannot go unanswered, Vash growled, his voice resonating through the chamber. Humanity believes they are beyond punishment. We shall remind them of their place. There was a murmur of agreement, although not all voices were unified. Councillor Leah of the Osari Syndicate shifted in her seat, her silver-flecked eyes narrowing. A straight military response risks far more than you know, she countered. Humanity has already demonstrated they are willing to escalate. They have no alternative but to escalate. Snap talk, a Zith official interjected. They are a single species. We are the Council. We control trade, resources, and the flow of information. A lengthy campaign will strangle them into submission. Athen's gaze flickered toward Vash. And what of Earth's allies? The Tian Accord has been neutral thus far, but if humanity is backed into a corner, they may seek an alliance. A small concern, Barish dismissed. The Accord is shattered, too engaged with internal disputes to challenge the Council's authority. His gaze darkened. No, we must move soon and decisively. No more threats, no more demands. We seize what is owed by force. Across the chamber, a holographic projector flared to life, displaying Earth's planetary defenses, fleet positions, and important locations of interest. The council had been planning for this possibility. They had expected resistance. What they had not expected was the tremendous savagery of humanity's answer. Tilva indicated toward the display. Their fleets are formidable but restricted. A coordinated strike against their shipyards will neutralize their ability to wage war. Occupying forces can subdue their colonies while we establish direct authority over their leadership. Leah breathed sharply. And if occupation fails? Suppose we transform Earth into another prolonged battlefield? Vash's expression twisted into something cold. Then we ensure there is nothing left to fight for. A heavy stillness followed. The meaning was apparent. The Council had devastated civilizations before, worlds rendered lifeless, their populations scattered or eliminated. Humanity was hostile, defiant, but they had yet to face actual annihilation. The Council's reach was enormous, its strength absolute. And yet the severed head on the table remained an unspoken challenge. Leah leaned back, her face unreadable. If we commit to this course, we must be prepared for total war. Athens' fingers tapped against the armrest. We underestimate them at our peril. Vash's eyes glittered with something close to amusement.